Thought-provoking.
Thought-provoking.
A thought-provoking article.
1,000.
1,000.
A journey of almost 1,000 miles.
$5,000.
The company employs 30,000 people.
I've been this route 1,000 times before.
There are thousands of things I want to do.
The 1,000th anniversary of the founding of the city.
Thraldom.
Thraldom.
Thrall.
Thrall.
We have a congress that is enthralled to special interest groups.
Thrash.
Thrash.
The girl was thrashing about in the water.
Salmon thrash their tails and leap from the water.
My poor brother used to get thrashed for all kinds of minor offences.
Brazil thrashed Italy 5-0.
We still have to get together and thrash out the details.
Thrashing.
Thrashing.
If you speak to your mother like that again, you'll get a thrashing. I'll give you the thrashing you deserve. The manager resigned after his team's 14-0 thrashing.
Thread.
Thread.
I'm looking for a needle and thread.
Hand sewn with gold and silver thread.
A spool of thread. A common thread running within his work. His mind wandered and he lost the thread of what she was saying.
A thread running through the film. A thread of spirituality in her work.
They had known each other as children and were picking up the threads of their friendship. I'd like to refer to something that was posted in an earlier thread.
The Colorado River was just a thread of silver 4,000 feet below. Will you thread the needle for me?
Tom threaded the rope through the safety harness.
Sue threaded the glass beads onto a piece of heavy string.
She came towards me, threading her way through the crowd.
Threadbare.
Threadbare.
A threadbare old sofa.
Threading.
Threading.
Threat.
Threat.
Your threats don't scare me. The threat of military invasion.
He says his family received phone threats from the group.
Threats made against his wife and children.
Nichols never carried out his threat to resign.
The government will not give in to terrorist threats. She dismissed the statement as an empty threat. They warned him with veiled threats not to mention anything he had witnessed.
The police are investigating death threats made against the two men. Officials at the school say they received a bomb threat at approximately 11:30 a.m. today.
The threat of famine.
According to the Secretary of State, the Russians face no threat from an expanded NATO.
The area remains under threat from commercial developers.
The program is under threat of closure due to lack of funding.
The fighting is a major threat to stability in the region.
Pollution poses a threat to fish.
Threaten.
Threaten.
Postal workers are threatening a strike if they don't receive a pay increase.
He threatened to take them to court.
Doctors are sometimes threatened with violence if they don't do what patients want.
Then he became angry and threatened that he would go to the police.
Poaching threatens the survival of the rhino.
The incident threatens to ruin his chances in the election.
Large areas of the jungle are now threatened with destruction.
Britain's fishing industry remains threatened.
Dark clouds threatened rain.
Threatening.
Threatening.
His voice sounded threatening. A threatening gesture.
A threatening thundercloud.
3.
3.
They've won their last 3 games.
We'd better go. It's almost 3. My little sister's only 3.
Teachers taking part will be asked to work in threes.
3-cornered.
3-cornered.
3-day event.
3-day event.
3-dimensional.
3-dimensional.
A 3-dimensional structure.
Objects that are 3-dimensional.
Threefold.
Threefold.
A threefold increase in production.
3-legged race.
3-legged race.
3-line whip.
3-line whip.
3-mile island.
3-mile island.
Threepence.
Threepence.
Threepenny bit.
Threepenny bit.
3-piece suit.
3-piece suit.
3-piece suite.
3-piece suite.
3-ply.
3-ply.
3-point turn.
3-point turn.
3-quarter.
3-quarter.
A 3-quarter violin.
A 3-quarter length coat.
3-quarters.
3-quarters.
3/4 of an hour.
3-quarter.
3/4.
Threequel.
Threequel. The first two films were huge hits, but the threequel flopped. 3-ring circus.
3-ring circus.
I don't know how you can work in that office. It's like a 3-ring circus.
3 R's.
3 R's.
3-score. 3-score.
3-score.
Threesome.
Threesome.
3-star.
3-star.
3-wheeler.
3-wheeler.
The Three Wise Men.
3 wise men.
MPs are debating the report provided by the Three Wise Men.
Threnody.
Threnody.
Thresh.
Thresh.
Threshing machine.
Threshing machine.
Threshold.
Threshold.
She opened the door and stepped across the threshold.
80% of the vote was the threshold for approval of the plan.
The creature is on the threshold of extinction.
Through.
Through.
Thrice.
Thrice.
Thrift.
Thrift.
Thrift shop.
Thrift shop.
Thrifty.
Thrifty.
Hard-working, thrifty people.
Thrill.
Thrill.
Winning first place must have been quite a thrill.
The thrill of travelling at high speeds.
Even though I've been acting for years, I still get a thrill out of going on stage. It gave Pat a thrill to finally see the group perform live.
She felt a thrill of pride as her son stepped forward.
His music continues to thrill audiences.
In the 1960s, the public thrilled to the idea of space exploration.
Thrilled.
Thrilled.
We were so thrilled to hear about the baby. I'm absolutely thrilled that you are coming.
He was thrilled about being asked to play.
Thriller.
Thriller.
Thrilling.
Thrilling.
A thrilling 3-2 victory.
Thrill seeker.
Thrill seeker.
A roller coaster that will please thrill seekers.
Thrive.
Thrive.
Plants that thrive in tropical rainforests.
A business which managed to thrive during a recession.
I wouldn't want that much pressure, but she seems to thrive on it.
Thriving.
Thriving.
A thriving tourist industry.
Throat.
Throat.
The singer complained of a sore throat after Wednesday's show.
She fingered the pearls at her throat.
Throaty.
Throaty.
Throb.
Throb.
The back of my neck throbbed painfully.
Her foot was throbbing with pain. I woke up with a throbbing headache.
A throbbing bass line. The river is throbbing with life.
The throb of the engines.
A steady throb of pain.
Throws.
Throws.
A country in the throes of profound economic crisis.
Thrombosis.
Thrombosis.
Throne.
Throne. He is next in line to the throne.
In 1913, George V was on the throne.
Throng.
Throng.
She got lost in the throng.
A throng of excited spectators.
Tourists thronged the bars and restaurants.
The streets were thronged with Christmas shoppers.
Throttle.
Throttle.
He grabbed her by the throat and began throttling her.
Policies which are throttling many Asian economies.
The engines were at full throttle.
The team's offense ran full throttle.
A political campaign on full throttle.
Through.
Through.
She smiled at him as he walked through the door.
Water will be pumped through a pipe.
I managed to squeeze through a gap in the hedge.
They were suddenly plunged into darkness as the train went through a tunnel.
There were people standing in the doorway and I couldn't get through.
I went through to the kitchen to see who was there.
A football came crashing through the window.
The bullet passed straight through his skull.
We passed through France on our way to Italy.
We made our way through the village to the farm. The wind howled through the trees. He had to push his way through the crowd to get to her.
Let me through, I'm a doctor.
You'll never get through. The snow's 2 meters deep.
Rescue teams have finally made it through to the survivors. We drove right through the town centre. Carry on straight through the village.
I could see her through the window.
I could see right through the thin curtains.
It took us ages to get through passport control.
He drove straight through a red light. The cold weather continued through the spring.
He slept right through the day.
The fighting went on all through the night. The book guides you through the whole procedure of buying a house.
When you've been through a terrible experience like that, it takes a long time to recover.
It's a miracle that these buildings came through the war undamaged.
This is the first time they've ever made it through to the final.
They didn't even get through the first round of the contest.
How many working days were lost through sickness last year?
She got her first job through an employment agency. A success that was achieved through cooperative effort and wise leadership. I heard about it through a friend.
A special bill was rushed through Congress to deal with the emergency. The store is open Monday through Saturday.
I left halfway through the film.
I tried phoning you, but I couldn't get through. Please hold the line and I'll put you through. Did you manage to get through to her?
You're wet through. What on earth have you been doing?
It should only take a few minutes to heat this through.
I'll say one thing for Sandra. She's a professional through and through.
Does this train go through to Glasgow?
George Ward started smoking at the age of 9, and at one time he was getting through 80 a day.
By the end of the year, he had run through all the money inherited from his father.
I'm not through just yet. I should be finished in an hour.
Are you through with the computer yet? That's it. Simon and I are through. I'm through with you.
Throughout.
Throughout.
A large organisation with offices throughout the world.
The disease spread rapidly throughout Europe. The disease spread rapidly throughout Europe.
The house is in excellent condition, with fitted carpets throughout.
We are open every weekend throughout the year.
He was involved in politics throughout his life.
The debate continued, but Meredith remained silent throughout.
Throughway.
Throughway.
Throve.
Throve.
Throw.
Throw. He threw his shirt to someone in the crowd.
Someone threw a stone at the car.
A crowd of boys throwing snowballs at each other.
Throw me that towel, would you?
He threw a handful of money onto the table.
Don't just throw your clothes on the floor, pick them up.
The bus stopped suddenly, and we were all thrown forwards.
The guards threw Biko to the ground and started kicking him. The guards threw Biko to the ground and started kicking him.
The bomb exploded, throwing bricks and debris into the air. She drew the curtains and threw open the windows.
I threw my arms around her and kissed her.
He threw his head back and laughed.
It threw me completely when she said she was coming to stay with us.
He threw himself down onto the bed.
She committed suicide by throwing herself out of a 10th floor window.
Anyone who opposes the regime is thrown in jail.
Hundreds of men were thrown out of work when the mine closed down. Elections were held, and the government was thrown out of office.
Everyone was thrown into confusion by this news.
The transport industry has been thrown into chaos by the strike. Fresh evidence has thrown doubt on her story.
This latest document throws suspicion on the company chairman.
He threw Anna a big smile.
He threw a glance at Connor.
I can't tell my parents. They'd throw a fit.
They threw a few awkward questions at me.
You're early, she threw at him accusingly. Plans have been announced to throw the palace open to the public.
I would now like to throw the debate open to our audience.
He threw a switch and the lights all went out.
The problem cannot be solved by throwing money at it.
Once again, we were thrown back on our own resources.
Since her husband died, she's thrown herself into her work. He's the sort of insensitive bully who enjoys throwing his weight around.
The party leadership is throwing its weight behind the campaign.
Recent investigations have thrown new light on how the two men died. The trees threw long, dark shadows across the cornfield. If you get caught, they'll throw the book at you.
I felt that everything I'd done for them was thrown back in my face.
Ted threw up his hands in disgust. "Can't you make her change her mind?" he asked.
We need to sort this out before people start throwing punches.
He was allegedly offered £20,000 to throw the match.
You have to throw a 6 to start. I threw caution to the winds and followed him.
I never throw clothes away.
I shouldn't have thrown away the receipt. I shouldn't have thrown away the receipt.
I can't afford to throw money away.
This could be the best chance you'll ever have. Don't throw it away.
We paid $2,000 for the boat, with the trailer and spares thrown in.
She threw in a couple of odd remarks about men.
They threw off their clothes and dived in.
In 1845, they finally threw off the yoke of foreign rule.
It's taken me ages to throw off this cold.
We ran flat out for about half a mile before we could throw them off.
The engine was throwing off so much heat that the air above it shimmered with haze.
I threw on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt.
We usually throw out all our old magazines.
Nick got thrown out of college in the second year for taking drugs.
I knew he would never throw us out on the street. The idea was thrown out by the committee.
The bill was thrown out by the Senate.
Huge trucks throwing out noxious fumes from their exhausts.
There's lots of food in the fridge. I'm sure I can throw something together.
It was the war that had thrown them together.
Georgia was bent over the basin, throwing up.
The arrangement may throw up problems in other areas. I can't just throw everything up and come and live with you. New houses hastily thrown up by developers.
That was a great throw.
A throw of over 80 meters.
It's your throw.
A brightly coloured cotton throw. A brightly coloured cotton throw.
Throwaway.
Throwaway.
It was only a throwaway comment.
He claims people overreacted to a few throwaway lines in the article. A throwaway cigarette lighter.
Throwback.
Throwback.
Her whole outfit was a throwback to the 1970s. A social event which is a throwback to a different age.
Throw-in.
Throw-in.
Beckham will take the throw-in.
Throw pillow.
Throw pillow. Through.
Through.
Thrum.
Thrum.
The engine thrummed into life.
The thrum of passing cars.
Thrush.
Thrush.
Thrust.
Thrust.
She thrust a letter into my hand.
He thrust me roughly towards the door.
He skipped aside as his opponent thrust at him.
Our complaints were thrust aside and ignored.
She never enjoyed the fame that was thrust upon her.
He had marriage thrust upon him. He jumped back to avoid another thrust of the knife.
The main thrust of the government's education policy.
Thruster.
Thruster.
Throughway.
Throughway.
Thud.
Thud. There was a dull thud as the box hit the floor.
His head hit the floor with a sickening thud.
The stone thudded to the ground.
Waves thudding against the side of the ship.
A horse thudded over the frozen grass.
Peter was aware of his heart thudding in his chest.
Thug.
Thug. He was beaten up by a gang of young thugs.
Thuggery.
Thuggery.
The problem of football thuggery.
Thuggish.
Thuggish.
Thumb.
Thumb.
A baby sucking its thumb.
She held the coin carefully between finger and thumb.
Would you do up these buttons for me? I seem to be all thumbs today.
The project was finally given the thumbs up.
Her performance got the thumbs down from the critics.
He was still under his father's thumb. I thumbed a lift into town.
A chance to thumb his nose at the college authorities.
I began thumbing through the pages of a gardening catalogue.
Thumb drive.
Thumb drive. Thumb index.
Thumb index.
Thumbnail.
Thumbnail.
A thumbnail sketch of recent political events in America.
Click on the thumbnails to view a larger version of each image.
Thumbscrew.
Thumbscrew.
Thumbtack.
Thumbtack.
Thump.
Thump.
If you don't shut up, I'm going to thump you.
She thumped the table with her fist.
His feet thumped loudly on the bare boards.
He thumped his cup down on the table.
Stella came thumping down the stairs.
My heart was thumping inside my chest.
The box fell to the floor with a thump. If he does that again, I'll give him a good thump. A thump on the jaw. Thumping.
Thumping.
Mulroney swept to power with a thumping majority.
He told us some thumping great lies.
Thunder.
Thunder.
We were woken in the night by thunder. She heard the thunder of hooves behind her.
The children came thundering downstairs. Huge lorries thundered past us.
Guns roared and thundered all around us.
You must be mad, he thundered.
Thunderbolt.
Thunderbolt.
The idea hit her like a thunderbolt.
Thunderclap.
Thunderclap. A thunderclap exploded above us.
Thundercloud.
Thundercloud.
Thunderous.
Thunderous.
His speech was greeted with thunderous applause.
A thunderous voice.
Thunderstorm.
Thunderstorm.
Thunderstruck.
Thunderstruck.
Jeff looked thunderstruck when he saw me.
Thundery.
Thundery.
Thursday.
Thursday. I went to Edinburgh on Thursday.
She was working Thursday. There's a meeting on Thursday night. He was arrested last Thursday. Mark and I are driving south this Thursday. I'll see you next Thursday. Christmas Day is on a Thursday this year. Thus.
Thus. Most of the evidence was destroyed in the fire, thus it would be almost impossible to prove him guilty.
They diluted the drug, thus reducing its effectiveness.
Her political career thus far had remained unblemished.
Thwack.
Thwack.
Thwart.
Thwart.
Fierce opposition thwarted the government's plans.
Thwarted ambition.
THX. Thy.
Thy. We praise thy name, O Lord.
Time.
Time.
Thyroid.
Thyroid.
Thyself.
Thyself.
T.
T.
Tiara. Tiara.
A diamond tiara.
Tibia.
Tibia.
Tick.
Tick. Tick. Tick. The old clock ticked noisily.
Tick the description that best fits you.
Just tick the box on your order form.
I've never really understood what makes her tick.
We need a decision. Time's ticking away.
The minutes ticked past, and still she didn't call.
Mrs. Watts will tick you off if you're late again.
As you finish each task, tick it off.
Have you ticked off Kate's name on the list?
Her attitude is really ticking me off. Carville began ticking off points on his fingers.
Mark left the engine ticking over and went back inside.
The business is just about ticking over. Jane will keep things ticking over while I'm away.
Put a tick in the box if you agree with this statement. Put a tick in the box if you agree with this statement.
I'll be with you in a tick. It'll only take 2 ticks.
Tick box.
Tick box.
Ticked off.
Ticked off.
Mark's ticked off with me for some reason.
Ticker.
Ticker.
Ticker tape.
Ticker tape.
Ticket.
Ticket.
How much are tickets for the concert?
I'd like 2 tickets to Berlin. A ticket to watch the US Open.
How much does it say on the price ticket?
He ran for governor on the Republican ticket. Michael thought an MBA would be a ticket to success.
Air travel sold and ticketed in the UK.
Ticketed events such as concerts.
Drivers stopping here will be ticketed and have their cars towed. 3 of the Army bases have been ticketed for closure.